And what's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning back into the channel. My name is Zach Davis. It is May the... I'm not even real sure what day it is. They're all running together. It's May the 11th. So this statement came out today. May the 11th, 2023, Fight, Laugh, and Feast releases a statement on Gary DeMar. So I've kind of been covering this. I figured I'd just keep going with it as long as there's stuff going on. They said, speaking on the Gary DeMar situation, as previously mentioned, as previously announced, we sought counsel from the elders of Christ Church, which is where they attend, on how to handle the questions surrounding Gary DeMar. In part, we received the following reply. In order to do this right, we attempted to set up an in-person roundtable discussion, which we were unable to do, probably because he didn't want to fly out to Moscow, which is understandable. That's a long way from Georgia. The next attempt was to conduct the roundtable on Zoom and to record it, which Gary ultimately determined not to do, deciding instead to submit a letter to us that addressed the 3 questions posed by the public letter. I think that's a really good move on Gary's part. At this point, the way technology is, if he does this, then they can clip it, and they can take everything that he says completely out of context, so I don't blame him for doing that. I'm not saying the Fight, Laugh, and Feast guys would do that. I don't think they would. I'm just saying anybody else that could see it. So writing a letter is what he did. If you haven't read that letter, I would encourage you to do it. I've read almost all of it. Raises some real good points, and he addresses some things that he addressed at the Berean Bible Conference, which I think the conference has something to do with the timing of this letter, because he did speak at a conference with full preterists. So they released this today, and it says that we have consequently considered his position as outlined in the letter, which we summarize below, and this is the basis of our recommendation to canon and Fight, Laugh, or Feast. The 3 questions were whether Gary affirmed the future bodily resurrection, or the return of Christ, whether he affirmed a future physical resurrection, and whether he affirmed a future final judgment and an end to evil. Our reading of his position is that he does not deny the first 2, but neither can he affirm them. And I think the reason would be is because he's asking questions still. If he's not comfortable in being settled on something, why is it wrong for him to continue to ask questions? And he does affirm the 3rd, meaning that he does affirm a future judgment. Whatever way he takes that, I'm not completely sure, but he does affirm a future judgment, according to them. Based on this assessment, the elders recommend that Fight, Laugh, or Feast no longer platform Gary's material on eschatology, and we have cheerfully complied with this recommendation. Okay, that's cool. They can do that. Furthermore, our elders wrote the following. With internet controversy, sometimes things get heated, and I agree, probably even guilty to a sense myself, that more courage behind a microphone and a keyboard than anything else if something was face-to-face. With internet controversy, sometimes things sometimes get heated and then overheated. We draw a distinction between teachings that are heterodox heresies or damnable heresies. Fair. We also make a distinction between cannot affirm and stoutly deny. In addition to that, we also make a distinction between personal heresy and failure to recognize heresy in others. All of this is worrisome, and so we would refer questions about Gary's status to his home church. Fair. For our part, unless his church determines differently, we consider Gary a friend and a brother. Understandable. Appreciate it. But one who should not be teaching on eschatology, unless or until he is able to affirm these 3 questions. Okay. We consider Gary a friend, but he should not be teaching on eschatology unless or until he is able to affirm these 3 questions. Now, when I read that, my immediate thought is, okay, if they're going to force him into this to affirm these things, which, by the way, is going to be creedal or confessional, which I take it would be the Westminster Confession of Faith, if they're going to force him to confirm this, then they should be able to adequately answer every single question that he has and every point that he raises. And let's see if they do that. In his letter to us, Gary raised many reasonable exegetical questions, along with the differences between commentators. Yeah, because they all contradict themselves, which demonstrate the breadth of his reading and scholarship on these questions. Essentially, they said he's not a dummy. Obviously, he's not. Our recommendation in this situation should in no way be taken as an attempt to justify shying away from the need to answer such questions. Let me rephrase that. He asked them questions that they can't answer in the letter, and they're not going to do it. So instead of saying, all right, let's take some time and answer all of these questions, they essentially said, nope, you can't affirm these first three questions, therefore you're not qualified and shouldn't be teaching on eschatology, and we're going to take all of your stuff off of our website and off our platform. Our recommendation in this situation should in no way be taken as an attempt to justify shying away from the need to answer such questions. They should be addressed, but, I love this, is my favorite part of the whole letter. They should be addressed, but by Christian ministers and theologians who can answer all three questions with a strong affirmation. Let me say that another way. We don't care what the Scripture says. Tell us what the creed says. And if you're not going to interpret it in light of the creed, then you're not qualified to be interpreting it. What are we doing, guys? But by Christian ministers and theologians who can answer all three questions with a strong affirmation. This is no different than the woke crowd telling me that I'm a racist just because I'm white. These are the people that can speak to a certain topic, and you can't speak to it because you've got a certain bias to it. Finally, we know that some of you accuse Canon Press or Fight Laugh Feast of being slow to act or using double standards with Gary, as compared, for example, with our community's stout rejection of kinism. However, when Thomas Acord was recently accused of running an autonomous Twitter account espousing kinist ideas, and he initially denied that it was his, we insisted on due process. Likewise, in this situation, Gary has insisted that he is not a hyper-preterist. That's true. And so we have followed the same standards of justice. Feel free to ask any questions, but we are not willing to debate either the decision or assessment of our elders or adjudicate Gary's beliefs further than what has been written here. They're not willing to adjudicate Gary's beliefs further than what's been written here. I don't know. My takeaway is, and this was posted by my friend Judson Noel in Reformed Preterist Discussion, coming from the Fight, Laugh, and Feast folks. My assessment of this is, all right, we're not going to platform Gary anymore, but he asked some questions that we can't answer. But if Gary can't affirm the three questions, then these things need to be addressed by people who can affirm these three questions. So you're never really going to get an answer to what Gary's asking, and that's the way this game gets played. I don't get it, but just another day here in eschatological land. I don't know. The whole thing's mind-blowing to me. Just, this is like, I mean, you've let somebody be platformed for so long and you've praised him, and then he gets to a part where he says, I don't know and we need to ask some questions. All of a sudden, we're just going to throw the guy off the bridge. I don't get it. I don't have any reason to stand up for Gary DeMar. I've met him. He's a nice guy. We spoke at a conference. But I don't understand the way that these folks are going about this. Kudos to them for wanting him to come out. Kudos to them for wanting to do the Zoom meeting. But they have no authority over him, technically. And if they don't want to platform him, they're more than welcome to. And also, I'll say this. Kudos to them for standing by their convictions. At least these guys have convictions. Here's what we believe. And we're not going to platform him because he doesn't believe this. Now, do I like the way in which they say things like, these questions need to be answered by those who can affirm the three questions? No. Because the same people who set the boundaries for the three questions are the same kind of fallible men that we are. Explore the scriptures and see what the scripture says. And at the same time, they would respond with, well, the scriptures determine the boundaries and this has been settled. That's fine. I get it. Just trying to keep everybody updated. If you like what's going on the channel, like and subscribe down below. God bless you. And we'll see you soon.